In 1988, Sheriff Hank Rourke vanished without a trace. No signs of a struggle, no goodbye, just gone, leaving behind a town full of questions and a silence that settled like dust over the years. 19 years later, a routine morning at the local grain silo is interrupted when the machinery jams. As workers drain the wheat to clear the blockage, something unexpected rises from the Golden River. Hank's patrol car, sealed inside as if time itself had hidden it. What happened to the sheriff? And why was his car buried in the heart of the town's tallest landmark? October 2007, Ashfield, Kansas. Silo 3 at Prairie Grain is supposed to sing. Fans on, wheat sliding, auger swallowing the harvest. Instead, it jerks, moans, and stops. The yard siren bleats. Phones rise like bright minnows. Walter Pike, the manager, wipes his glasses with his tie. Bridge in the flow, someone yells. Motors cut. Men rake at the crust. Dust hangs like fog inside a cathedral of tin. Then the wheat moves. A slow river starts, and with it, a dark hump noses up through the grain. First a roofline, then a light bar. Blue paint where only wheat should be. The crowd falls quiet as letters appear. Sheriff Smoky Hill County Car. 1. The hood tips like the thing has been trying to breathe for 19 years. A single name. Crosses the yard. Hank Rourke, September 14, 1988. The county smells of hot hay and road tar. Sheriff Hank Rourke wakes before dawn in his white porch house, the one where every neighbor has borrowed sugar. He shaves with a safety razor, pockets peppermint gum, taps his badge as if it were an old friend. The radio promises clear skies. And a south wind out by 7, he is at the Bluebird Diner. Marla Jessup runs it with a smile that can move a crowd. Pie with breakfast, Sheriff, or breakfast with your pie. Whichever slice won't testify against me, he says. He folds a gum wrapper into a neat 5-point star and leaves it on the check, his quiet signature. Farmers murmur about prices. A boy stares at Hank's holster. Eat your eggs, Hank tells him, solemn. Eggs are braver than guns. The boy salutes with toast. Marla rolls her eyes. Before he leaves the diner, he signs a church raffle sheet. Jokes about whether a fishing rod or a crockpot saves more souls, and taps the bell for luck. On the calf call, a miller boy trails Hank with loose laces and a flood of questions. Do badges itch? Do sirens work if you whisper? Do cows know their names? Hank answers each like it's new, knots the laces without comment, and sends him back, holding the rope like a ribbon. At 8:10, Hank returns a slingshot to Ashfield Elementary. He makes the 6th graders swear never to aim at birds and titans. A loose hinge on the front gate because his hands refuse to leave a fix for later. The radio pops. Unit 2 to 1, Deputy Gina Mallory says. She's 27 and faster than yesterday. Our celebrity calf made bail again. Copy, 3-note. Hank answers, then whistles 3 quick notes that bounce through the channel. He finds the calf in Boyd Miller's barley, talks to it as if it were a stubborn neighbor, loops a rope, and lets the animal decide returning was its idea. Boyd, half deaf, shouts, "You arrest my cow, you feed her." Hank finds him 1 stick of gum and leaves another wrapper star on Boyd's mailbox. Late morning, school zone, courthouse, pawn shop. He pairs lost watches with wrists, screws a porch bulb tight, nods at everyone. Folks say Hank keeps the county together with a toolbox and decency. He shrugs. Pride is heavy. He does not like towers or tunnels. He never says why, but the grain elevator at the edge of town always squeezes his ribs. Years ago, a silo took his older brother. When Hank looks up, his breath sometimes remembers. Afternoon leans warm. He rolls through Prairie Grain. Trucks hiss on the scale. The catwalk lines the bins like a bridge in the sky. Walter Pike cleans his glasses, says they're running hot but smooth. On the loading line, young trucker Leo Lobo Ortega backs a rig with easy grace. Hank watches the routine ticket, dump, rumble, and makes himself breathe through it. He visits the scale house. The clerk stamps tickets. A faded poster lists target moisture, 13.9%. Coils of orange rope sit by the door. Out back, an old grain dryer sulks behind warehouse 2, welded shut since forever. Hank stands in the doorway where he can see the sky. Hank feels an itch where an old scar hides under his shirt. He rubs it, takes 2 slow breaths, and tells himself quietly, "Just a tower, just a job. Coffee." The clerk asks, "Better not." Coffee and I declared a truce. He says by 4:30 he nods at the Bulldog's running sprints, leaves a gum star on the bench, and heads back toward the elevator. The tower throws a long sharp shadow over the highway. Evening turns the yard into hard lines of sun and steel. Hank parks by the office and keys the radio. Smoky Hill 1 to Unit 2. I'm 10-8, heading for the grain tower. 3 minutes. Gina. Smile audible, copy boss. Don't climb anything you can talk down. Hank's 3-note whistle tings from the speaker, the sound that makes half the county relax. He drops the mic, adjusts his hat, and walks toward the stairs of the catwalk. Back at dispatch, the recorder ticks along, capturing dog complaints and lawn chair emergencies. It waits for Hank's next check-in. It gets a breath of static, far fan whine, and then nothing. Night gathers. By 7, Gina is calling every 5 minutes. One status. By 7:20, she is cruising the elevator yard with the bar lights off because panic is ugly in small towns. She walks the fence, where prairie grass leans as if listening. The first star appears. It is not made of wrapper foil. They find the hat at 8:43 p.m., snagged on a bar by the South Access Road, brim west, dusted with the flour-fine powder that rides the wind and fall. Boyd swears it was there earlier, then swears it wasn't. His memory handles time like loose nails. News outruns sirens. People arrive with flashlights because that is what people do. They call Hank's name and coyotes answer with thin laughter. The search lasts 3 days. Ponds are dragged, culverts cleared, sheds opened. Reporters from Wichita probe for tears and quotes. The cooperative closes for half a shift, then opens again, because grain does not care who is missing. Without a body, rumors breed. He ran, he was taken, he was a hero, he was a fool. The hat becomes a marker kids dare each other to touch. The county learns to live with a space where a person should be. Back to 2007. The silo crew has clipped a cable to the half-risen car. A firefighter with a mask leans in. A battery drill chews through a rusted lock. Someone says, carefully, "Let's treat this like a grave." Walter nods too fast. Phones tilt forward. The door opens. Light moves into a space that has not seen. Light since George H.W. Bush was new. Dust swirls. There is no body on the seat. The holster clip is empty. The leather logbook, Hank's ledger of stops and quarrels, is missing. Only a spare tire, a webbed cocoon in the footwell, and the faint, stubborn scent of peppermint. We hold on the roof, the faded star of Smoky Hill County at dead center, caught by slants of daylight leaking from the seams of the dome high above. A thing can be found and still be lost. Freeze there. Let the metal glow. Let the quiet turn into a question large enough to step inside. October 2007, the morning after the car rose from the wheat. Ashfield wakes early, half by habit, half by dread. A teacher's sedan rolls down Main with boxes of paperbacks. June Rourke has not lived here since college, yet the courthouse dome, the elevator's silver ribs, the diner windows fogged with coffee all remember her. At the sheriff's office, Gina Mallory signs the reopening order with neat, parallel pens. She was the junior deputy when Hank vanished. Now she wears the star. "We do this clean," she says. "No ghost stories, just work. I teach 9th graders," June says. Work is the only magic left. Car 01 rests on timbers under an open shed at Prairie Grain, wheat still clinging to the seams. Evidence tech's bag of tire iron, faded flares, a torn county map, peppermint wrappers fused to the carpet. On the driver's door, the dust holds a handprint with no ridges, only a diamond pattern of glove. Another smear sits on the trunk. Interviews. Start like harvest, row by row. Walter Pike, the manager, receive them in an office where a fan just moves heat around. He wipes his glasses with his tie. Terrible what the grain gave back, he says. Asked about September 14th, 88, he recites an alibi. Lions Club dinner at the Presbyterian Hall, fried chicken and speeches. Sign-in sheets exist, his wife remembers. The story is polished smooth. Leo Lobo Ortega parks his rig behind the scale house and offers sunflower seeds like a handshake. A magnet for blame, but easy in his skin. Tachograph was busted. He says before they ask, boss said run it anyway. He describes a delivery night. Weigh, dump, weigh again. Chase coffee until the world hums. You hear a silo breathe, he adds. Fans talk, air shifts. If the sound goes wrong, your neck hairs know first. Did you see Hank? June asks. Everybody saw Hank, Lobo says. That's why it felt safe. At the Bluebird Diner, Marla slides coffee and a slice she calls truce pie. On the house, she says. She remembers who sat where in 1988. Hank came late afternoon, asked for change for the vending machine. Wrote numbers on one of my matchbooks while he waited on coffee he didn't drink. What numbers? Gina asks. 13.9, 56, and a letter B, I think. I told him I like words better than math. He said numbers are just words in disguise. Boyd Miller waits on his porch like a weather vane in denim. He hears half of what is said and all of what isn't. Inspector of Grillos was here that week. He announces. Crickets. Gina corrects. Grains. He nods like it's the same thing. He counted 1 to 3 before every poke with his rod. A man who counts out loud is either careful or crooked. They walk the elevator yard. Before they leave the shed, a lab tech pulls Gina aside. Corn dust, he says, is an archivist. It creeps into texture and never lets go. The diamond print on the door matches cheap. Warehouse gloves, the kind dumped in a bin at Miller & Sons. Driving to the scale house, June watches town in slices. A boy hauling a trombone, a florist hosing the sidewalk, a scarecrow in a cap. She promised to stay through the semester. Saying it aloud makes it sound impossible. The weighmaster lets them stand by the test bench. He drops kernels into the moisture meter. The screen blinks a number. In a rush, men round up, he says. Round up long enough and you forget how honest feels. He doesn't look toward Walter's office. Back at the office, Gina files. Chain of custody and lines pens. People think corruption looks like suitcases, she says. Most of the time it looks like rounding. June nods. My students cheat like that. One line at a time. Gina's smile is humorless. Then you understand our county. The catwalk lines the sky. On the hoist beam for Silo 3, long-heeled gouges scar the paint as if something heavy was lifted badly. Gina photographs them. In the scale house, boxes of weight tickets sleep in rows. Somewhere, a fan clears its throat. June feels the old shiver. Gina turns pages. Here. The week Hank vanished looks tidy until night. 2 hours of blanks. No inbound, no outbound. A neat void. The clerk moved to Nebraska. The room still smells of burned coffee. What does 13.9 mean? June asks. Target moisture, the current weighmaster says, tapping a faded poster. Dry to that, you get top price. Wet costs. Dry too fast, you crack kernels. And 56 pounds per bushel. Buyers love pretty numbers. And the B, he shrugs, blending. Mix dry with wet till the test smiles. The idea lands and stays. Back at the car, the glove box sticks, then gives. Inside, registration, a school safety pamphlet, a Bluebird Diner matchbook the color of a robin's egg. Pinned to it by time a gum wrapper star. June lifts carefully. Ink rises from the cardboard, thin but stubborn. 13.9, 56, B Hanks. Careful print, the B a shade darker, as if he pressed harder there. Gina kneels. If someone pushed moisture tests down and weight numbers up, that's money, she says. Simple math with dirty hands. Big elevator, small county checks clear, no one asks. How much money? June asks. Enough to put 3 kids through college. Enough to buy silence. Maybe enough to bury a car. They return to Walter. He keeps to his dinner story and adds a detail about his speech on service. He says it like a prayer. Lobo repeats that he left before 9 but can't prove it because the machine that should prove it didn't. Boyd brings a box of bent nails because he thinks they're hunting metal. Humor, like breath, keeps them moving. June drifts back to the diner. Marla sets a cigar box ledger on the counter between salt and ketchup. I keep this stubs when folks need change, she says. In a neat column for September 14th, 88, Rourke change for $1. Note, matchbook for numbers. He was anxious. Without being rude, Marla adds. He did 3 little knuckle taps on the counter before he left. 3 little taps, June repeats, thinking of the 3-note whistle that used to calm half the county. Outside, the elevator hums like a throat about to speak. June opens the matchbook on her palm. The numbers look plain as weather. The gum. Star rattles softly in the breeze. She sees her father at the counter again, tapping his badge, folding wrappers, making evidence even when he wouldn't call it that. Marla leans in to be certain. She studies the ink as if it might crawl. That's his hand, she says, soft. He wrote those here at about 4:30, hours before he walked out and didn't come back. The diner noise thins until forks are ocean and knives are crickets. June closes her fingers around the cardboard, and the world's camera pushes close until all that exists is a slanted 13.9, 56B and the tremor of her breath, the matchbook in June's grip. Numbers clear, the town's math refusing to be just numbers any longer. Morning slides over Ashfield like a pale sheet. Gina and June sit at a metal table in the scale house while the county extension agent, a patient woman named Dr. Carol Nix, sets out props. A moisture tester, a clear tube of kernels, a bushel. Weight chart printed in colors that time has washed out. Here's your translation, Carol says. She pours grain into the tester and clicks it shut. 13.9 is the sweet spot for winter wheat. Buyers pay best at that number. If it reads higher, the elevator docks the farmer or dries the grain longer. If it reads lower, you risk cracks and price drops. She taps the chart. 56 pounds per bushel is the standard weight the board loves. See this column? 55 pays less. 57 looks amazing but is rare and usually means special varieties or very careful drying. And the letter B? June asks, the matchbook open in her palm like a compass. Blending, Carol says. You mix dry with wet to hit the number you want. A legal practice in moderation when documented. In secret, pushed too far, it's fraud you can pour. Gina nods. Fraud you can pour, she repeats. As if testing the phrase for balance. They begin to rebuild the night of September 14th, 88. In a back room, boxes of triplicate tickets wait like old phone books. June sorts by time while Gina inputs numbers into a laptop that looks wrong beside all the paper. The evening shift shows a parade of trucks with tidy waits until 6:40 p.m. Then the ledger turns thin, as if someone pressed 2 hours flat. No inbound, no outbound. Yet the electric meter for the elevator, which the utility kept because numbers never die, shows a burst between 7 o'clock and 7:30, the fans and conveyors spiking hard. So the machines worked, June says, but the paperwork didn't. Which is one definition of crime, Gina answers. They take the afternoon to walk the catwalk. Wind pushes at their shirts. The bins shine like moons. Lobo waits for them at the top, the sun behind him making his hair a halo he does not deserve. Or refuses to. He carries a length of poly rope and a length of chain. "You want to hear a silo sing?" he asks. He crouches beside the vent and listens. When wheat runs right, it hums in a low chest voice. When there's a bridge or a void, it squeals higher, like a fiddle string. When something heavy moves that isn't grain gear, chain. Hell, even a car, the tone goes patchy, like a bad radio. He starts the small training fan Carol loaned them for demonstration. Air whistles through the metal. He drops kernels past the grate. The sound deepens, finds a steady throat. Then, he shakes the chain over the opening. The tone doesn't just change. It stutters. That, Lobo says, is the sound of not wheat. June watches him, waiting for the con. It does not come. He doesn't brag, doesn't plead. He just stands there and lets her hear the difference. "You didn't tell anyone this in '88? Gina asks. "I didn't have the words." Lobo says, "Back then all I had was a stomach." They walk on. Somewhere, a hawk writes lazy cursive above the fields. Near the hoist station for Silo 3, the paint is scabbed by something that dragged across it old gouges like commas grown. Tired, June kneels. Beneath a lip of rust, she finds letters scratched with a pocket knife decades ago. A B, next to it, faint, but there. 3 short chalk marks, protected by the bracket from rain and time. Boyd's voice from yesterday knocks in her head. The man who counted 1 to 3 could be anyone, Gina says reflexively. She photographs it anyway. "We do not marry evidence, we just dance with it." They chase initials through paper. In a dusty cabinet in the county office, they find inspection logs for the elevator going back to 1980. Signatures bloom in neat rows, names like Miller, Kessler, Roth, and then Arthur Bell, a tidy cursive that lands on the page like a quiet shoe. Arthur Bell signs 4 times a year through 1988. After that, he vanishes, replaced by temporary coverage and then a different inspector. A marginal note in a clerk's hand reads, "Transfer to Pratt Region effective Jan 89, June traces." The signature with her eyes, "Arthur Bell," she says softly. A B. Gina keeps her voice flat. "We are not at proof. We are at a doorway." They call Topeka to ask for Bell's personnel file. The state woman on the line is polite like a fence. "We'll look into it. If this relates to an open death investigation, the department may need to assume command." Gina thanks her and hangs up. She lines the pens next to the laptop with 2-finger precision, catching herself doing the habit she hates. "They smelled the heat," she says. They trace the gloves. At Miller & Sons, the owner flips open a ledger with a string tied to the pencil. "Diamond print warehouse gloves? We've sold them since the flood," he says. He remembers nothing from September 1988. Who would? But he does remember a state man who wanted invoices made to cash for field tests, because people who pay in cash name their projects. June buys a pair, just to have the texture in her pocket. They walk the Lions Club Hall, too. A corkboard holds bright paper fish from a children's event. The dinner guest book from that night offers 78 signatures and the menu: chicken, potato salad, sheet cake. Walter's name is there, neat as a fence post. A note in the margin, someone's pencil reads, "W out for medicine 7:05 to 7:30. Time enough to step outside, cross a yard, give a push." They return to Prairie Grain with the utility load graphs Carol wrangled. A spike at 7:12, another. At 7:19, then a settle. Carol circles them. "Fans and conveyor starting and stopping," she says. Not normal for a quiet night. Normal for moving something not flowing right. What about the ticket blanks? June asks. "Clerks sometimes hold tickets to re-enter later," Carol says. Or someone tells them to go home early and leave. The machine depends on what story the elevator needs to tell. They pull the dispatch tape from archives. The machine whirs. Voices return from 19 years ago. Dog complaint. Loud music at the trailer park. Then Hank, 10-8 heading for the grain tower. 3 minutes. 3 notes, quick and clean. After that, hiss. Deep under it, If you turn the volume too high, there is a high whine like a kettle. A fan. June hears it and shivers. Lobo, listening with head bent like a mechanic listening to a sick engine, points at the second blip on the utility graph. That's when somebody hit a stop, he says. Chain got hung, then free. Could the elevator crew be innocent of the car? June asks. They could, Lobo says carefully. But the machine knows. The machine says someone worked. The hoist wrong. The marks say the same. Gina's desk phone rings. It is the state woman again, now a man beside her. Layered politeness. The Attorney General's office is forming a task force. A liaison will drive out tonight. They will need copies of all logs, tapes, photos. They want the car under a state. Tarp. Gina thanks them again, voice even as a level. She hangs up and stares at the pens. She rearranges them until each points north. June watches Walter through the window of his office. He cleans his glasses with his tie. Once, twice, a third time. He is a man who needs the world to be clear, or at least to look that way. Back on the catwalk, June touches the scratched bee with a gloved finger. Chalk dust comes away faintly. Proof of shelter. Proof of small honesty. The marks survived because metal forgot to rust there. People who count out loud. She says, either careful or crooked, Gina finishes. They draft a timeline on the Fainite on the teamway. Whiteboard in the conference room. 4:30 Hank at Bluebird, writing numbers. 6:40 tickets go quiet. 7:05 Walter leaves dinner for medicine. 7:12 utility spike. 7:19 second spike. 7:20 to 7:30 fans whining on tape like wire under strain. 8:43 had found, planted or blown. 1,989. Arthur Bell transferred. The board is clean, the line straight, the picture almost a picture. They are still. Standing there when two suits from Topeka arrive with friendly handshakes and cool eyes. One reads from a folded letter, by authority of the Kansas Department of Agriculture and the Attorney General. Effective immediately, the investigation transfers to Topeka for central coordination. Local office will assist. Silence, the kind that makes chairs louder when you shift. June looks at Gina. Gina does not blink. She sets the letter down. She aligns her pens until they are perfectly parallel, ink tips kissing the same invisible line. Her voice is the same one she uses to clear crowds without raising the temperature. Then, she says, we'll go faster than they do. Gina keeps the letter from Topeka on her desk like a paper snake and doesn't touch it again. 3 of us, she says. No briefings, no speeches. We retrace Hank's day, step for step. June nods. Lobo cracks a sunflower seed and pockets. The shell suddenly solemn. The task force can coordinate whatever it wants. Ashfield can still walk. They start where Hank always started, the Bluebird. The bell above the door throws a bright ding and the place smells like butter and coffee. Marla won't let them sit before she slides out a plate with 2 wedges of pie and a butter knife. Pie test, she says. You can tell a person by how they cut a circle. Lobo carves a lopsided trapezoid that robs the neighboring slice. Of its back, Marla whistles, guilty of geometry. June, playing along despite the knot in her chest, rotates the plate and trims a clean arc, then leaves the angles for someone else. Teacher, Marla diagnoses, sees the hole. Gina makes a perfect wedge and moves every mug on the counter into tidy pairs. Sheriff, Marla says, softer. They eat in quick bites and talk in quicker lines. Where Hank stood, far enough. From the espresso machine to watch the window, what he wrote, 13.9, 56B. How he tapped the counter 3 times before leaving. Laughter bumps the grief just enough to let it breathe. They walk Hank's loop. School still hinges tight on the gate he fixed. The Miller pasture, now a bull where the calf once learned ropes. Boyd raises a hand from his porch. You folks chasing ghosts or grillos? He asks. Grain, Gina says. Same difference. They sing at night. He squints at a memory. That night, Walter said he needed medicine from his car. Came back smelling like gas and dust. Might have been 20 minutes, might have been 2. My watch has lied since. 72. He grins. But I remember the moon had a notch out of it, like a mouse bite. About what time? June asks. During the second verse of the hymn I hate, Boyd says. So 7-ish. At City Hall, the clerk in an olive cardigan rattles a metal drawer open and lays building permits on the counter. June's fingers find the date like a magnet. September 16, 1988, Warehouse 2. Concrete slab 12 inches reinforced, rush approval. Attached, 3 invoices paid in cash, line items vague aggregate, rebar, labor. Initials on the approval line, a deputy commissioner who retired to Florida. We don't see cash often, the clerk says. Except fares and problems. A sketch on onion paper shows the slab footprint extending past the old grain dryer that was supposed to be dead since '86. Back at the sheriff's office, June cues the 1988 dispatch tape again. They listen for what the ear missed the first time. Hank's 3-note whistle pops bright. Under it, the high chirr of a fan winding up. June drags the slider back and plays it again, then again, holding the tone in her teeth until she can taste the metal. On her laptop, she loads a reference clip from Carol Nix's training fan and lets the 2 sounds overlap. The peaks match, like teeth in a gear. So he wasn't on the highway with his window down, June says. He was standing inside the complex with the fans already turning. Gina doesn't smile, but her shoulders lower half an inch. Say that on a stand. And even a bored jury leans in. They drive to Prairie Grain and ask for a quiet minute in the scale house. The weighmaster shrugs and steps outside with a cigarette. June studies the sealed water meter, the gauge tied to the dryer's fuel system, tagged commissioned in red. The lead lock that should be whole is scarred, the wire retwisted and snipped again long ago, then recrimped like a student's late homework. Grease rings around the nut, ancient and unbothered. Someone broke this, used it, then pretended they didn't. June says dot in the back corner, a maintenance log page is missing. The torn edge catches her finger. A single penciled note remains. At the top margin, a ghost of a line. Dryer-O-OK with no date. Lobo runs a hand over the dryer's side wall and dust snowfalls in slow motion. You can cook grain in a dead machine if you don't mind lying, he says. Turn it on enough to pull moisture and never write it down. They climb the catwalk once more. The yard tilts below into trucks and mend the way a town becomes a map. The gouges at the hoist look uglier in late light. June measures one with her thumb, wide as a chain link dragged sideways by panic. Near the railing, the AB scratch still. Waits beside the 3 chalk cuts, the faintest tally a patient man might leave for himself. June can't help saying the name. Arthur Bell. Don't marry evidence, Gina says. But this time it sounds like she's reminding herself how to breathe. They lay a new timeline across the catwalk floor with grease pencil, a line that starts with Bluebird at 4:30, fins at 6:40, jumps, with fans and power at 7:12 and 7:19, and lands on a hat at 8:43. The line forks, path A the obvious, Hank driven to the edge, car dumped, mystery finished by the fence. Path B, the mechanical, car lowered into silo 3 to steal the story. While something worse, something smaller and harder to find, happened near the old dryer. June circles the fork and writes red herring in block letters. They return to Bluebird. Because some answers only come with refills. Marla watches June draw the fork on a napkin. Sweetheart, Marla says, when a man who hates tight spaces walks into a machine shed, he's hunting something that scares him more than the machine. She points with her chin toward the elevator, or someone. Lobo tries another. Slice and fails the pie test again, cutting a crescent that eats from both neighbors. I drive straight, he defends himself. But circles insult me. Maybe we need a circle today, June says, to close one. Evening peels across the lots. Topeka sends a text about chain of custody and media strategy. Gina turns the phone face down and writes an affidavit on legal paper by hand, neat as roof shingles. Probable cause that the Warehouse 2 slab, poured on September 16, 1988, covers. Evidence related to the disappearance of Sheriff Hank Rourke. She lists the electric spikes, the ticket blanks, the glove marks, the broken seal, the cash invoices, the AB scratch, the 3 chalk ticks, and Boyd's memory of medicine time. She adds the matchbook numbers 13.9, 56B. When she runs out of lines, she flips the page and keeps writing. They drive to the county judge's house, a porch lit by a lamp shaped like a fish. The judge reads without interrupting. She asks 2 questions. How many men will this wake? And how long to cut? Gina answers, as few as we can and as long as it takes. The judge signs. At dawn, she says. Less gossip then, and the concrete will be cool. Back at the yard, under halogens that fill the dark with yellow coins, Gina lays chalk lines on the warehouse floor where the slab lips over the old dryer. She ties her hair up, checks the jackhammers, and walks the perimeter twice. June sets up a camera on a tripod with a fresh card. Lobo tests the breaker on a spare block to feel the bite. The tool bucks in his hands, settles, finds its rhythm. He spits a sunflower hull into his palm and pockets it instead of the ground. Once we break this, June says, we don't get to put it back like it was. We don't get to put any of it back, Gina says. But we can open what was closed. Boyd's truck rolls by slow on the road as if pulled by a rumor. He doesn't stop, only raises 2 fingers off the wheel. The moon has a mouse bite missing, just like he said once. Maybe they all carry the same old sky. They step inside. Warehouse 2 while the town still sleeps. The slab is a gray ocean with chalk crosses marking the spot Hank never got to leave. Lobo breathes once through his nose and says nothing. June thinks of the 3 taps on the diner counter, the 3 notes on the radio, the 3 chalk marks. On the catwalk, small rhythms a careful man leaves behind. Gina puts on ear protection and safety glasses. She checks the warrant folded in her pocket like a permission slip nobody can take back. On my count, she says. 1, 2. Hammers lift, hold there. Steel poised above chalk, the camera. Pushing in until the concrete fills the frame and the lines pulse with the blood in their hands. Dawn finds them where the chalk marks wait. Gina nods. Lobo squeezes the trigger. The jackhammer bites. Dust lifts in pale sheets. Concrete gives in chips. They cut a rectangle, pry, and a seam opens. Cold air rises from below. June's light falls into a round mouth. The old grain dryer, paint dulled to a color without a name. A ladder goes down. The beam sweeps over a dead control panel. Across its face run short, blunt arc scratches made by fingertips, not tools. On the frame, a torn shoelace is knotted to a screw head. At the base of the panel, a small object sits, folded tight as habit. June lifts it with tweezers. It is a gum wrapper star, stiff with time. No one speaks. Outside, big fans hum in the bins, as if the building is trying to breathe for them. He was here, June says. Gina nods once. And he left us this. They work slow. Photos, measurements, bags. Lobo holds the ladder and studies the marks. You don't pound, he says. You scrape. Your hands try to learn metal. When the panel is sealed, they lay the story out on a folding table. Numbers on a matchbook. Fans on when the radios caught the call. Tickets blank for 2 hours. Power spikes at 7:12 and 7:19. Gouges on the hoist. The car in silo 3 like bait. A dryer, retired, that was not retired at all. The pieces sit on the table until even the table believes. June lets the night of '88 replay in cheap honest. Steps. Hank climbs to the catwalk. He asks about moisture and weight and keeps getting smiles. He sees the cut seal. He hears a fan that does not belong. He says he will return with paper in the morning. A state man with quiet shoes counts 1, 2, 3 while he plans his next sentence. Walter wipes his glasses until the world blurs the way he wants it. Quick work follows. A belt. A belt. The hoist sings wrong. Car 01 rolls under a running stream so the grain hides what men do. Doors tie shut. A body is herded not toward the road, but toward the old dryer behind. Warehouse 2, wire, knot, silence. At dawn, a truck brings rebar and gray mix. By noon, the slab is smooth and official. By noon today, the rumor has already grown legs. Reporters drift along the fence. A liaison from Topeka thanks them in a way that means stop. Gina smiles the smile that closes a door without moving it. We'll coordinate, she says. We'll also do our jobs. The call about Walter comes mid-afternoon. His sedan was seen flying east. Gina is in her cruiser before the sentence. Lands. Lobo points his semi toward the Saline River because he knows where men go when they think the county ends. They meet at the Iron Bridge. Walter brakes hard. Gina keeps the bar lights dark and the tone low. On the far side, Lobo eases the rig halfway across and stops. Steel and diesel become a cork. Walter stares at the water, then at the mirror, then at his hands. He opens the door. The air on the bridge tastes like warm rust. I need my medicine, he says. You'll get what you need, Gina answers. She reads the words the law gives her. The cuffs click. The bridge hums again when the cruiser rolls. Back at the office. The state demands words that wear gloves. Alleged. Pending. Subject to. Gina gives them just enough and no more. June turns to paper. The Lions Club keeps everything. In a banker's box, she finds 3 fat checks dated within a week of Hank's disappearance, each from Prairie Grain, each for community improvement. The endorsement stamps bloom like small flags. On another stack, a handwritten note reads, "Thanks for the rush." In the cooperative's file cabinet, June finds a vendor entry that snags the eye. Service O Unit Ellsworth. The date is September 17, 1988. The line is paid in cash. The stamp is soft but there. Harlan's Farm and Heat. She calls. A voice riffling paper confirms a service ticket that mentions a state badge number as the customer reference and a request to check fire chamber scoring. She writes the address. It sits out on a road that takes you past wind-scoured elevators and a billboard for used combines. Gina says they will knock in the morning. The liaison wants it first. Gina thanks him for the counsel and sets down the phone. Evening leans against warehouse 2. The hole is tarped tight. The panel rides in. A case on its way to a lab that knows how to read small violence. The shoelace and the starlight tagged in trays. June stands in the door and hears her father's habits in the empty. 3 taps on a counter. 3 notes on a radio. 3 chalk cuts on a rail. She thinks of how long a person has to say a thing before anyone hears it. Her phone rings. The number hides. She answers with her last name because that is what Hank taught her. The voice is older than she expects and careful as if each word costs. It does not give a name. The man you are looking for, the voice says, still counts. To 3. The click after is clean. June is already moving. The night smells like wheat straw and a hint of rain. Gina's engine turns over in the lot before June reaches the curb. Lobo idles at the corner, window down, hand on the wheel, as if he were born waiting for this call. June climbs in with the address on an envelope and the tremor still in her hand. They point the lights toward Ellsworth and take the road that runs along fields and shadowed towers. The county falling behind like a folded map. Night leans over the hayfields. The county falls behind like a folded map. Ellsworth sits at the bend of a highway where wind keeps its own calendar. The farm equipment yard smells of oil and sun-baked rubber. Rows of cedars and augers stand like patient animals. A bell over the door rings when they step inside. Behind the counter, a man in a faded state jacket tests a scale with a handful of bolts. He drops 3, watches the needle, and taps the metal one. 2, 3 before writing the weight. Arthur Bell? Gina asks. He looks up. Gone gray hair, careful. Hands. The jacket still fits a person who used to stand straight for inspections. He taps the scale again, the same rhythm. If we're buying something, he says, we should be clear what it is. We brought the bill, Gina says. She lays the line of proof out simple, like fence posts in a row. Bluebird at 4:30. Moisture, weight, blending. Tickets blank from 6:40 to 8:40. Power spikes at 7:12 and 7:19. Hoist gouges. Glove prints. A, B scratched on the catwalk with 3 chalk marks. Rush slab over the old dryer on September 16th. Panel with fingernail. Marks. Gum wrapper star. She names Walter Pike, the Lions Club, medicine, and the broken seal on the dryer fuel. We don't have your signature on a crime, she says, but we have your initials near one. Bell listens the way inspectors do, quiet, measuring. Not just words, but angles. Initials, he echoes. Lots of men have A and B. He wipes his hand on his jacket and sets it flat on the counter, palm down, fingers aligned with the edge. The hand trembles once, very small, and stops. June takes something from her pocket. A matchbook the color of a robin's egg. She doesn't show him the numbers. She just whistles the 3 notes her father always used, soft and fast, the tune that once opened radios across a county. The sound is small in the big room, but it goes everywhere. Bell's face shifts, quick weather. His index finger taps the counter 1, 2, 3, as if the whistle pulled a string. He closes his eyes. When he opens them, the inspection jacket looks like a costume. Walter thought you were stubborn, he says. The words seemed to hurt on the way out. He said the sheriff would make a scene, call Topeka in, ruin a season. He said we needed a night, just a night to fix the numbers. 2 hours with the dryer and the blender, and no one asking why the board lit up. He said you can drown any sound if the fans are on and doors shut. Gina doesn't move. Tell me what you did, she says. No shout, no promise. Just a floor to put words on. We argued on the catwalk, Bell says. Hank said he'd be back in the morning with a warrant. I told him that would put men out of work. Elevators don't catch their breath easy. Walter laughed and said he'd show me a shortcut. We walked down to the shed, and the sheriff followed because honest men follow. Walter had a length of wire already in his pocket. I wish I could say that surprised me. He swallows. The hand on the counter turns into a fist and then forces itself open again. Walter took the car keys and said he'd park the sheriff's unit where no one would find it. That folks would stare at a silo for years if you gave them a reason. He knew the hoist and the chain and the way the grain hides what you lower slow. I told myself he meant to scare the sheriff, to turn him around. I told myself a lot of things. And you? June asks. Her voice has no edge, only weight. I turned the auxiliary on the old dryer, Bell says. It wasn't on the books. We had kept it for emergencies. You don't unlearn where switches live. The sheriff, he thought. He said the air tasted wrong. We locked the panel door with a padlock Walter kept in a coffee can. The fan covered the noise. I counted 1, 2, 3 before I hit the breaker, the way I always do when I make a change. The habit felt like permission. He doesn't look at them. He keeps his eyes on the scale like it could forgive him. Where is his gun? Gina asks. Bell chews a dry corner of his mouth. Behind the dryer shed, south side. We tossed it into the drainage ditch that runs to the creek. You'll find it under sand and beer cans. We poured the slab the next day. I signed transfer papers 3 months later. I told myself the job moved me. Truth is, I moved myself. Will you put that in writing? Gina asks. He nods. I will, he says. It won't make the counting stop. Outside, the wind goes on as if nothing changed. Inside, Bell writes while Gina records the statement. He signs his name with the practiced curl that once earned him trust. When he is done, he sets the pen down and taps the counter one last time. 1, 2, 3. The sound is softer than mercy. The forensics team meets them back in Ashfield. They grid the ditch with flags. A metal detector chirps over pop-tops and wire. Lobo brings a magnet rake and drags slow. A tech kneels, brushes sand, and lifts a black shape wrapped in silt. It is the county service revolver, serial numbers scarred but not gone. The cylinder smells of old oil and river. They bag it while the first geese of fall ride a V above the bins. Under warehouse 2, the tarps come off. The dryer's inspection door is unbolted for the first time in 19 years. The chamber holds what quiet holds. A belt buckle with the county star, a ring cleaned by time, cloth that is no longer cloth. The bone map every person leaves behind. June stands back so the team can do the careful work. She doesn't cry because it would be water where the room needs air. She presses the gum star in her pocket until the points bite her skin, and that is something she can feel by dusk. The Attorney General's men arrive with press lines and names for crimes. Gina signs the transport orders for Walter Pike and Arthur Bell. Walter stares past everyone with the blank of a man who tried to choose his ending and didn't get it. Bell signs a waiver so the transfer is clean. He doesn't ask for a jacket. Night brings the town to the elevator. A vigil grows at the base of the tower, candles in jars, thermoses, Bulldogs jerseys. Hymns someone half remembers. The wind keeps untying the sound, and the people keep tying it again. Boyd Miller stands near the fence and squints like he is trying to move the moon with his face. June steps forward with a small tin. She opens it and lays gum wrapper stars at the foot of the steel, one by one, the way her father used to leave them on solved things. She whispers his name only once. The tower takes the whisper and sets it somewhere safe. Boyd leans toward her. "Did the sheriff ever get back on the radio?" he asks, voice too loud because he can't hear the question he's asking. June turns to him. "He's on all our reports now," she says. "All of them." Across the lot, Lobo stands with his hands in his pockets and looks at the catwalk where the chalk once was. Marla passes paper cups and hands out pie like a sacrament she invented. The Bulldogs band plays something that was a hymn before brass found it. When the candles are low, Gina walks to the side with June. "Tomorrow we tell Topeka what we found," she says. "And we keep telling it until the story is true in every room." June nods. For a while they stand without talking, just listening to their county breathe. On the way back through the Miller pasture, the old calf, now a bull with a head like a suitcase, waits at the open gate. He blocks the path, snorts at the dust, and tilts his face toward June as if asking who she belongs to. June tears the corner from a gas receipt, folds it into a small 5-point star with slow, square fixes, and holds it out at arm's length. "We're not here for your grass," she tells him. "We're just trying to get home." The bull studies the star the way some men study terms they don't plan to honor. Then he shifts a step, leaves them a lane, and pretends it was his idea all along. Lobo laughs under his breath. "Negotiation accepted," he says. A thin rain starts, just enough to lift the smell of dust and wheat. At the office door, the phone on Gina's belt shakes. She answers with her name. A deputy on night patrol speaks, voice wired and amazed. "You should see this," he says. Southfield, near the county line after that thunderhead rolled through theirs. A boat sitting in the stubble. No water, no trailer. Just a boat like it fell out of a story. Gina looks at June. June looks at the star in her palm and closes her fingers around it until the paper creases make a map. "We'll come in the morning," Gina says. "Let's do tonight right." They head back inside. The station hums the way a heart does when it has work. June sets the tin of stars on her father's old desk beside the badge he used to tap for luck. One star slides loose and stops at the edge, as if it has something to say. Hold the sight of it. A small, bright shape made with a steady hand. The kind of sign a person leaves when they want others to find the way. The light above the desk flickers once and steadies. June presses the star flat and feels the paper answer her touch. She lets herself breathe in and breathe out 1, 2, 3. And then she smiles because the count keeps time with something inside that finally knows where to go. The night closes gentle over Ashfield. The tower stands. The county learns anew. Kind of quiet, and the star between June's fingers shines a little from the oil of her skin.